Welcome to the Apex Racing TV Weekly Roundup podcast, your surefire way of keeping up to date with all of Apex Racing TV's broadcasted series. This week, we discuss the season finale of the ARL Touring Car Winter Series, the Abruzzi SimRacersWorld Endurance Championship, the opening round of the Racetech Euro V8 Supercar Series, and the iRacing official Formula 3.5 Championship. So let's get into the action with your host Sam Fitzpatrick and Marco Barbanero. With your host Sam Fitzpatrick. Welcome back, Marco, to the Apex Racing TV Weekly Roundup podcast. And yeah, once again, we're back for another week of racing and a couple of series starting, a couple of series ending, and a couple of series well into fruition now.
Absolutely. Hello, everyone. Hello, Sam. Absolutely. I mean, after the winter break, where we still had some stuff going on, of course, it's safe to say we are back into the full swing of racing here on Apex Racing TV, and it's beautiful to have all these championships starting, other championships ending, but resuming the final part of their season, and of course the official series. They are still going strong. They don't care about holidays or whatever. So yeah, a lot to talk about, a lot on the plate as per usual.
Absolutely. So we're going to start off with probably the biggest events on Apex Racing TV. We record this on a Friday. Hopefully you'll be listening to this relatively soon. And yesterday evening, it was the season finale of the Apex Racing League Touring Car Championship Winter Series, that is, the first ever one for ARL TC. And it was a championship decider. So we had 3 races at Daytona, of course, 20 minutes each as always, and in the Audi TCR car. And going into the final race of the season, Wojciech Swiatovic led with a decent lead in the pro standings. Also, Kip Stevens had a little bit of a lead in the amateur standings as well. However, in race 1, despite Wojciech, I think, leading in the early stages, he was involved in a collision with Ross McFarlane, who gave a tap to Simmons, and then Simmons gave a tap to his own teammate, Wojciech. And Wojciech was involved in a collision later on, and then had a classic Hamilton 07 flashback where his gears failed on his rig and he was trundling around in second gear for about 30 seconds. I mean, you could not write it. And managed to still score points crucially, which meant that it was pretty much level in the championship going into the second race of the evening. And unfortunately for Wojciech, couldn't quite get within the reverse grid, so started behind his main challenger, Jack Sedgwick, who won race 1. And those two are pretty much even on points. The race 2, at the end of race 2, the main story was a massive crash between Jake Blackhall and Michael Blake. Blackhall winning that one, Blake spearing off into the tyres. Sedgwick got 3rd place and Swiatovic was 6th. Sedgwick had a little bit of a lead going into race 3, and then race 3 was quite incredible. Sedgwick leading all the way up to about the 12th minute when I believe he went for the lead or it was for 2nd place. However, he collided with Simon Field across the start-finish line. They had a big crash. Field picked up some damage and went into Sedgwick into turn 1, spinning Sedgwick round into the wall, and that dropped him outside the top 10. Swiatovic somehow managed to win that race from, I think, outside the top 20, and he won the race and the title by 14 points. Now, this is provisional, and still some stewarding has to be done, but it's looking very strong for Wojciech Swiatovic to take his 6th title, Marco. And remember, I remember in one of our first podcasts doing this, we were talking about how Swiatovic, I think, was down 26th place in the championship. This is a guy who only got into the showdown places because of the amount of race wins he had. He actually finished 16th out of the normal rounds. Did all but one of the rounds, and you have 2 drop rounds, so nothing to do with his participation. He just wasn't that quick in the car initially, scraped into the showdown places, and then has won his 6th title. It is quite incredible.
absolutely incredible. Uh, and to be fair, not like you were saying, not very easy to predict just a few weeks ago what happened in this championship. But it goes to show, I mean, the way the format of the showdown goes, and uh, how we, especially how evenly matched these drivers are. It's crazy to think that a title could be decided this way, but goes gives even more weight, more importance to Wojciech's and his number of titles won. Of course, this is the first, like you were saying, first edition of the ARL TCR Winter Series, which then will evolve in the full-fledged championship, of course, coming up very soon, and the first championship with the newly released car, of course, the Audi RS3 TCR. So, well, it took a bit of time for Wojciech to get used to the car, apparently, but when he did, he was very quite in contention. It took a little bit of luck. Also, don't talk about the Hamilton moment, because it makes me very sad every
I
time.
felt bad when I was writing the notes. Shall I mention it to Marco, or do I really want to give him nightmares for the next couple of weeks? But I went for it.
So in the end, I mean, there is no better place than the high banks of Daytona, despite having raced and commentated around this racetrack, you know, almost to the point of self-inflicted pain in these past 2 or 3 weeks. And for me, it's not over, because, of course, as a novel guy, Daytona 500 is coming, so I will probably do two attempts, one in the NASCAR iRacing series and the other in the major series. So yeah, great one, great. It in order, I have to say, there was some skepticism by some elements of the community about the switch, of the, I have to say, the spiritual successor, of course, this ARL TCR series to the BSR series, same time slot, same day, mostly the same drivers. But in the end, especially in a very crowded TCR league market. And of course, don't forget that last season this was also the primetime series on the esports network on Friday, the official TCR series. I think this championship has emerged as the top dog in TCR competition on iRacing, and already I cannot wait for the next season to begin.
Absolutely. So, yeah, Wojciech winning out by 14 points ahead of Jack Sedgwick. Jason Cooper in the end in third place in that championship. In the amateur standings, Kip Stevens just about held on against David Van Broek. 13 points there. That really came down to the last race. Van Broek with a crazy race. I think he was like ahead of Stevens maybe in championship contention. I think he had a crash, fell behind, was falling back, then got ahead of Stevens. It was all going on. Kip Stevens, though, despite not being the owner of the league anymore. I mean, when he was winning before, he was, hacking it, and genuinely this time he's actually done it like legit. I mean, who would have thought that? Paul Smith, third place. I mean, it was ever so close. I mean, Michael Blake was in fourth. If he hadn't have had the crash at the end of race 2, who knows what would have happened to him? I think he was saying how maybe he would have, had the points to actually challenge for the title win. But wasn't to be for Blake. Recommend anyone to watch that race from yesterday. Apex Racing Team won the team standings ahead of Sim Sports Racing USA, who just got ahead of CQR at the last round of the championship. Smile Times and Wartsall are the amateur champions. Boosted SimSport and Boosted Motorsport in second and third. Just a word on Sedgwick. I mean, we know that Jack's a very good driver. It's a little bit of an awkward situation. Both Apex Racing Team drivers for the round, which I guess is, good, isn't it? Because, I mean, if one of them loses, at least, they've lost to a good friend of theirs. But he did pretty much everything right to Cedric. I think he may have won the normal season as well. But I think going into next season, whilst Wojciech, of course, is a 6-time champion and Jack is yet to win a title, I think maybe Sidgwick is he the favourite going into next season, or do you think, Marco, there's anyone else who could perhaps, offer a challenge? Nicole Foggy, George Simmons, Ash Sutton, Alex Simpson, loads of others.
I mean, yes, in the sense that we have seen that there's a plethora of drivers who could win the championship. Of course, you can never look past Wojciech and Sedgwick and Sutton and Foggy. I mean, start already with these guys, but as you said, there are plenty of other Simmons, Simpson as well, and of course, other drivers who are always there or thereabouts, which could realistically challenge for the title. And of course, the showdown system makes it so. I would also say Glatzel, Cooper are also drivers, in my opinion, that can have their say in any day, on any day. With a right combination of results, they can do very very well in the coming years, but in the coming season, sorry, more than the coming years, because they've been very very consistent all throughout the years, and they've shown, as I suspected, that some drivers took a little bit more time than others, but in the end, those who were quick with the Kia are still very very quick and competitive with with the Audi as well. So a nice way to end the season once again. Nice to have the fireworks, of course, running around in Daytona with the fireworks. We didn't have them in the SimRacersWorld Enduro. I wonder why, because the race was at night,
Yeah,
completely at night. I was, I was hoping for them, and then at the end of the race we had no fireworks, and I was very sad. But
I
we
wonder.
will talk about that in a bit.
I wonder if it's something to do with the fact that it ended in the morning, that it ticks over to the next day. So it's like, it's morning. It can't be fireworks. I don't know.
There are noise restrictions. Yes, yes,
Yeah, yeah.
absolutely.
You don't want to wake people up. Perhaps that was the case. More on that, as Marco says, later on. But yeah, so Sorodovic, once again, 6-time champion. 6 of the last 7 championships have gone to Wojciech Sorodovic. And of course, the Apex Racing League Touring Car Championship. More news on that in the coming weeks. Very excited about some of the minor changes for next season. Really should boost it very, very good. And yeah, they'll be back in the next couple of months. So next up, we'll talk about the SimRacersWorld Endurance Championship. Believe it or not, Marco, this is going to blow your mind. It was at Daytona, and it's honestly, I commentated on the AOSC at Daytona earlier on. I'm done with that track. I dislike it anyway. It's totally overused, but this race was an epic, Marco. It doesn't necessarily have the most amounts of drivers. We'll go class by class, talking about it. So we'll start off with the first class and the biggest class. 16 GT3 drivers took to the start. Fury Sim Sports were leading from the starts with a rev match very close in the draft. Also, T3 Motorsports, who won Barcelona, came in as the championship leaders, were very close in the early stages. They faded away a little bit, still got a solid third place in the end, however. And they, the top two, Fury Sim Sport and Rev Match, they took alternate strategies kind of throughout the race. I believe Fury took tyres at the first stint, meanwhile Rev Match didn't, but they still, had the same amount of tyres taken across the entire event. And so they were just racing against each other all the way, despite not necessarily being on the same piece of circuit. Danny Cruz, or Cross? Cruz, of course, yeah. Guys, apologies. So Danny Cruz caught a 5-second gap in the penultimate stint. I mean, that was as big as the gap got, 5 seconds. And on same tyres, he managed to catch that gap up. But then, crucially, pretty much the deciding point, Marco, was when he overwent his pit stall. He was in line to perhaps take the lead for the first time in the race legitimately, and he just overshot his pit stall, had to hesitate, reversed, 3 seconds lost, and in the end he lost by a couple of seconds, 5
5
seconds.
seconds lost.
Yeah.
In all the the dancing around this pit stall. So I was doing some research the other day, going back to maybe people that are not familiar with what we have gone through, the both of us. So I was thinking about, I have raced in the BMW 120, a 2-hour race, official iRacing race. So we started with 2 hours. That was 2 Sundays ago. After that, I did the majors 2.4, like a couple of hours later, 2.4 hours. Okay, so we are now at almost 5 hours of racing. The day before this, we commented together on the roar before the 24. So add 2.4 more hours to the tally. After that, Daytona 24 hours, where I raced. Admittedly, not all, but I spent 6 hours driving and a boatload of hours spotting. Then we've had this, which lasted 5 hours and a bit. Then you had AOSC today, and on Tuesday I did for another broadcaster a 1 hour race plus 30 minutes of qualifying broadcasted from Daytona. So now people can have an idea why, and of course I watched the 24-hour race, the real one, in the weekend. So now people can have an idea of, you know, I love Daytona. It's beautiful. It's my favorite enduro of the year. But let's say that maybe it has been a bit overdone by the various series. Now back to our race here, the SimRacersWorld. This race, it was one of those races that, when I tell people, I'm commentating on a race, it's 1,000 kilometers. It's going to be 5-6 hours, maybe 7, depending on also the pre and the post. This went by in a hurry. It was enthralling from start to finish. The battle for the lead in GT3 was absolutely fantastic. Kept us on the edge of our seats until the end. Like you said, Danny Cruz for rev match. That mistake in the pit stop really cost him dearly. And I have to say, at a glance, yes, people might say, oh, there are only 5 entries in TCR and I think 6 in Porsche Cup, but both of these categories were also very close. Of course, the Porsche Cup main takeaway was a runaway victory for RSR, but top job from the rev match guys in the Porsche Cup, because Steve Clays got cluttered very hard at the beginning of the race. I have no idea how they managed to fix that car and have such a great pace to finish second. Remember, Sam, that car was crabbing in the opening portion of the race after that contact with, I think, the left rear. And we said the game is over for them, not because there are no fast repairs. That car is, when a car is crabbing in a racing. And yes, they got service good repairs, but of course then you still have to deal with a car that is unbalanced, and especially in a track like this, no? So unbelievable job by the rev match guys. And of course the TCR race, I mean, great as well. There were a lot of it was redemption, of course, for rev match after what happened to them in the academy team, the TCR team, after what happened to them in Barcelona. But Texans Fitztime Motorsports were very close. It was we've seen some epic bump drafting from the TCR boys. Something that then, of course, we saw last night as well in ARL TCR. So, I mean, this series, I agree with what Ian said. By the way, the Pro Series is coming back, quote unquote, soon. Oh, sorry, soon, trademark, or hashtag soon, whatever. But I agree with what Ian told us post race in the interview booth when he said that so far everything they are touching is is striking gold. But at the same time he was very very humble in saying that this is because the community works really hard and he has some top people, himself included, I should add, running the leagues, running the championships. It's incredible to think that we have had so much fun in Daytona more than in Barcelona, but I think that Barcelona, you talked to me, we were talking about this on Sunday, that um, Daytona is, sorry, Barcelona was probably the, let's say, worst track, as Sam is back, hopefully. the Sam, can you hear me?
Yes, sorry for that.
Don't worry. Also, people will probably hear the traditional Discord noise because I forgot to deactivate
We're
it.
so professional.
Oh man. So as I was saying, Barcelona, like we were talking about this on Sunday. Probably Barcelona was the quote unquote worst track of the schedule that they had. So things are looking up from here onwards, and of course, the next time around, Road America, beautiful track, and of course GT4 will join the fray, so it will make for bigger numbers, fantastic racetrack, and already I'm super interested in that particular race. It's going to be great, and it's going to see interesting to see how many drivers will switch from the Porsche Cup to the GT4, or other teams that maybe are waiting, as Ian was saying, to join the championship to run it in the GT4 car.
Yeah, should be a lot more entries. And if they're anything as good as the other three classes, we're just going to have an extra third of action, hopefully. So it will be a really good that. So yeah, congratulations to Fury Simsport for winning the GT3 category. Well done to RSR for winning the Porsche category, and well done to RevMatch for winning the TCR category as well. All very close in the championship now, as Maiko says, heading into Road America for the next round of the season. I mean, for the GT4 cars, Maiko, I mean, how are we expecting those guys to react to the other classes? I imagine they're going to be not a whole lot faster than the Porsche cars, potentially. And the Porsche cars are pretty handy around a circuit like Road America. Could we get some class interaction there?
Well, that is a big question. First of all, I just realized I need to find a new color for the overlay for the GT4, which is going to be interesting because
Magenta?
I was thinking about magenta. How can you read my mind this easily? I was thinking about magenta because every other color I'm thinking clashes with, I would say, you cannot use white because then you cannot read the numbers. Oh well, I'll think about it. So in other simulators that I've tried, TCR and GT4 tend to, GT4 are quicker, but TCR tend to mix and match with them. But they are probably using as a reference. Not probably. They are using as a reference point the Michelin Pilot Challenge of the IMSA series, the support series where TCR and GT4 race together, and there they are pretty well balanced in the sense that GT4s are GT4s and TCR are slower. So I am eager to see, because of course GT4s will have traction control and ABS, something that of course the Porsche Cup doesn't have, but of course they will be even less powerful on the straight than the GT3 cars, and we already seen in Barcelona and in Daytona that GT3 cars suffer on the straight compared to the Porsche Cup cars. So it's going to be interesting to see if the league and the drivers are able to balance it well, because this is, it's not like they will have a lot of time to have any idea or develop I also don't think it's in the rule book to have a balance of performance done specifically for the enduro series. Uh, so it's going to be a big surprise for everyone. I think we will go into the race with a lot of question marks about class, and of course, I would also imagine there will be a lot of people running GT4, people of different speed. So some of them will be very quick, some of them will not be very quick. It's going to be interesting. The positive thing is that we have massive straights on Road America, which means that, if you have to lap other people, you have the space. But at the same time, it will also mean that the Porsche Cup cars will have a field day with the other classes. So, and I'm a bit of a crazy. I won't say other stuff, but I don't know how it translates very well in English. But can you imagine GT Porsche Cup car zooming by GT4, GT3, and then having to brake for the left-hander turn 5, I think. I don't know. You know the corner I mean, no, after the long straight at the beginning of the lap, and having to
Yeah.
suffer on the brakes while the other two classes have ABS. Oh man.
Well, of course, we have Bathurst, which is coming up, which is like the same thing, isn't it? Coming out of Forest Derby, and then the Porsches zoom past, and they have to brake halfway down the straight for the shoot. So or the chase, apologies. So yeah, that will be really interesting. If you want to sign up, of course, GT3, Porsche Cup, TCR, GT4. The next round of the championship will be at Road America, of course, in about 4 weeks' time. Or 3 weeks' time.
It will
So
be in
certainly do
March. It will be in March. So
March.
because
So
that's when
5
the new
weeks.
build comes out. So
Aha, yes. So yeah, 5 weeks away, that one. And yeah, certainly recommend signing up for that one via SimRacersWorld.com. So we've reached the middle point of the podcast, and so we'll talk about iRacing news. Not too much news. I always say that, to be honest. At this point of the season, we get we're always on edge, waiting for something massive to be announced. But there's been a little bit announced. So first up, concrete stuff that we know. We are going to get a new GT4 announced. The M4, I believe. And yeah, that will be a nice addition to iRacing. They've scanned it, or they are scanning it, so it will be a while. Probably season 3 at the earliest, perhaps mid-season, season 3, or season 4 probably at the latest. But no, good. It's a good sign that iRacing are investing in this new GT4 class. Clearly, they have a lot of faith in it.
And even though they didn't get my input in this, I am so happy because they scanned my two favorite GT4 cars available. So I am super happy. So yeah, they scanned a GT4 BMW from a team which I know the name. I have known the name since like 1 minute ago, and now I forgot it. So I will tell you in a second. That participated in the Pilot Challenge. Actually, it is a car that they just retired. Not the M4 is alive and well. That particular car that they scanned, they bought a new one basically. The guys from this team, and I will tell you in a second the name of the team, because otherwise the podcast won't continue. I promise you.
We're on standby now. This is
We're on
intermission.
standby, but the driver article of the most famous driver to race for that team doesn't include his IMSA statistics. Let's go to the driver database.
We will get to the bottom of this, and that's it. But yeah, just
yeah. So yeah, and this car is very interesting. I said it many times. Turner Motorsport. Okay.
well done. There you go.
Team that the yellow and blue team that they also employ BMW GT3 cars in the main series, in the IMSA series. In the WeatherTech Championship, they used to run the Z4, and then they run the M6. Sam, also worth noting, as a interesting note, that in those years where they raced with the Z4 and the M6 GT3, these cars were also used in the GT Le Mans, that, as you know, is the GT class with a different name. But they were BMWs, so why? No, because they didn't race in Le Mans. They only raced in the IMSA series, these GTs, this Z4 GT and the M6 GT. Well, because they got basically there was a gentleman agreement that they could race in the GT class with GT3 machinery adapted to GT, which is forbidden, on the pact that they didn't race in Le Mans in the WC. So that's why they never showed up with the Z4 and M6 GT in Le Mans. And this has been and still is today a racing program brought forward by the North American BMW organization, no? So this is why the M8 has already been canned in Europe and EWC, but is still racing in IMSA competition. Of course, the M8 a different story. It was a born and bred GT. It has not been made into GT3 also. So yeah, this is why we had to wait a lot to see BMW in Le Mans as a GT competitor, because the older GTs, the M6 and the Z4, were not allowed to race. And it was interesting because, of course, you saw that, for example, it was nice to see when they had the M6 GT in IMSA. You could clearly see that it was taken from a GT3 because that was the year where they allowed those big diffusers in GT, and most of the cars were able to conceal them because they were designed with these big diffusers in mind. The BMW M6, being a GT3, had this, like, you could see like the entire diffuser was sticking out of the rear end like a sore thumb. So it was clearly designed. But back to the M4, a very big car. Doesn't look like a racing car, but it is a racing car. It's very nice. I've been up close to one of those in real life a few months ago. It goes, it looks very, very tall for being a race car. Not as massive as the M8. Great addition. Partnership with BMW, I think, working very, very. Partnership with BMW, partnership with Porsche, the two main partnerships of iRacing on the roadside right now, giving us nice race cars. GT4 has been long requested by the community. I'm very happy to have GT4 in iRacing. But as you were saying, yes, the car has been scanned basically last week, believe it or not. So it will take some time to get it into the sim, but it will come. I'm guessing season 3, like you. Season 2 impossible. Season 3 is a good guess, if not season 4. So, but yeah, great to have. And of course, this means quite certainly that we will get a new TCR car after that, because we'll have 2 and 2, I think. And as I told you many times, they technically already have 2 other TCR cars ready to. They don't even have to do the physics for these other 2 TCR cars that, if they want, they can publish in the sim. The Cupra, of course, and the Golf, because they are the same car as the RS3 Audi, identical.
Yeah, so they could perhaps. Would they have to scan the bodywork, you think, of the other
I
cars?
think.
Or?
Yeah,
Okay.
because the Audi is a little bit different. Like the Golf and the Cupra are identical. The only thing they change is the headlights and the logo. The Audi is like slightly longer in the back, but that's it. Apart from that, the cars are identical, like nothing changes. So the physics will be the same, and everything else will be the same. So, um, but yeah, I mean, you were telling me that they were hinting somewhere at having TCR stuff coming down the line. If that's the case, I'm ready to bet it's one of those two cars.
Yes, I mean, hopefully we'll have another TCR. That'd be just weird to have a touring car championship with multiple cars involved, rather than the normal, rather than what we kind of got used to with just the Kia or just the Audi RS3. But yeah, the new GT4 car coming soon, and of course we've got the Porsche GT4 car to look forward to for next season. The other big iRacing news, I guess, Marco, which isn't really news, it's postponed news. The patch. Now, what do we think the patch involves? We both think that it's AI. Are we going to put bets on cars and circuits? I think probably the car will be. Oh, I don't know actually now. I mean, you doubt it would be anything multiclass. Maybe Formula. Have they got Formula 3 yet?
No, that was my prediction, Formula 3, and
Oh,
I was thinking about something related to a Charlotte Roval, these free
yeah.
tracks that. But at the same time, the fact that they have postponed it makes me think that maybe, but this is wild speculation on my end, that there might be something coming on the oval side. The Daytona 500 is right around the corner right now because it will be in 2 weeks from today, February the 16th, which means that February the 9th they will start with the traditional qualification races, the ARCA race, etc. So it's well and truly Daytona week in 1 week time. So maybe they have a surprise in store for us for um, for the AI on the oval side. Another one thing that's sure, for sure, 100% that's going to be in the patch because it has been announced, is a fix for the Barcelona historic cut track. And here I have to go on a very small but I think necessary excursus, maybe a mini rant of sorts. So the Porsche qualifying series, to go to the basically the stepping stone to the Pro Series, the Pro Championship, the World Championship in the Porsche, the Porsche Sports Super Cup, is of course taking place inside of the official Porsche Cup series in iRacing. And this week they are racing at Barcelona Historic. And lo and behold, people, because these drivers are rightfully trying to get every single bit of performance, drivers have noticed that you can exploit a couple of massive holes in the cut track penalty system, basically at the left-hander after the backstretch and in the penultimate corner. You can have the entirety of your car on the on the inside of the curb and get away with it. And so after the first couple of races of the week, people complain about it on the forums. And there is a post on the forums, on the Porsche forum, saying that that is not allowed, and if you do that, you will get a ban. This is very bad from iRacing, in my opinion, because first of all, this is important. This is the qualification to your main roadside world championship. Either you should, because they say, okay, we are taking this measure, and then next week the patch will come out. The patch has been then postponed, so whatever. So in any case, the patch would have been late. Now I don't know, and I don't pretend to know how long does it take to fix the off-track issue. I am not a programmer, not a designer. I have no idea. But at the same time, the fact that a potential, because judging by the sporting code, if the simulator says it is okay, it is okay. So, I mean, if you remember, Sam, there is in the old Silverstone, in the southern layout, I think, or yeah, you can go on the inside of a curb completely, and no one has ever complained about that. It was the de facto racing line. I've raced in BSR competition in that particular layout of Silverstone, and no one blinked an eye about that. So this at the very least, so not an ideal situation. If there is no time to push out an update, okay, but this has to be like front page, big characters, and maybe send an email to the participants, a private message, whatever, because not everyone reads the forums, and it doesn't say anywhere that you need to read the specific car forum to get informations about ban worthy offenses that you have no idea of, because you see everyone exploiting that. And of course, iRacing cannot monitor every split at every hour or every 2 hours, whatever. So, especially in the lower splits, people were, I imagine, still cutting left and right even later in the week. So that was not good about iRacing. I didn't like the way they handled this, and especially because the issue with the cut track has been there for quite some time. I remember almost 100% sure that this was noticed straight away when Barcelona was released a couple of builds ago. But since this historic layout is not very used, and there are not, like, you go there with a formula, you destroy the car, you destroy the underside or the wings. So it's not worth doing it. But with the Porsche Cup car, which is a car born and bred to ride hard on the curbs, people were pushing the limits, and then they found out that you can go there. So yeah, not good from iRacing. Hopefully a warning for the future, because these things, especially in a qualifying series for the World Championships, shouldn't happen.
Yes, certainly. I mean, it's incredible how that error came into play and how it hasn't really been spotted so far. But yeah, multiple parts of the circuit, can just cut vast amounts, and yeah, hopefully that'll be adjusted by racing in this coming patch as well. And maybe there's a couple of surprises. Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed. Not too far away from next season, of course. Now, of course, in terms of Apex Racing League, well, Apex Racing League Touring Car Championship is over. A couple of championships that may be announced soon. Keep your eyes peeled on the Apex Racing TV Facebook page, or if you're in the Apex Racing League Discord, I might post a link to it. You can see all the updates on there as well. So some exciting stuff coming through for that. Also, we've got the Bathurst 2-hour event tomorrow. That may have passed by the time we release this. However, maybe we'll discuss it on next week's podcast. It should be quite good fun. GT3 and Porsche Cup cars. So the penultimate series we'll talk about is the Euro V8 Supercar series, Marco. One of our favourite series. Let's not lie. For me at least, it is pretty much my favourite series. Something that's I've pretty much commentated on it ever since I was a commentator at Apex Racing TV, and yourself similarly. Of course, it was your first ever broadcast. We're now in season 8, believe it or not. We started off in season 4. We're into season 8 now. We know the drivers extremely well. I think we know the drivers better than ourselves. And this first round of the season, though, was a bold one. Monza, no chicanes. 40 plus cars, of course. Now, well, okay, we'll take it from the start, seeing that we've just mentioned the circuit. Lap 1, race 1, corner 2, there was quite a big crash. Pretty much the thing that you think could happen around Monza no chicanes, and it did happen. We had probably about a 15-car pileup there.
Exactly. Sadly, we were talking about it in the pre-race show. Don't remember if in before pressing play or or go live, or or in the opening minutes of the broadcast, but that particular section of the track, of course, it is it is not built by iRacing as the historic layout, and for good reasons, because it's not really. Yes, the first chicane you skip it by going straight, so that is okay. But in the past, when you used to go there, if you race there, for example, in Grand Prix Legends, after the Curva Grande, you had a straight, which went straight for Lesmo 1 and 2. And here, of course, iRacing scanned the track as it is in nowadays. You have to go through a kink, basically, that cuts through the runoff area of the Variante della Roggia. And of course, being a runoff area and being that iRacing scans stuff the proper way, the surface is not very smooth. So when you have 40 plus cars running there side by side, having only just lifted for the Curva Grande, but otherwise going full blast, it only takes one, and we've seen cars, lose their composure all night long on that particular bump. Well, when you have 40 plus cars running side by side there, it only takes one little, moment, and then all hell breaks loose, and that is exactly what happened there. It was one of the biggest crashes of the series. I have to say that the drivers after the race were, I remember some, if you remember the Okayama round, for example, or where we had a massive pileup a couple of years ago,
Yes,
or
yeah, season 5.
Yeah, or the Tsukuba round, which was exactly 1 year ago, basically, to this day, where it was a super sprint round with a lot of carnage. Drivers seem to be more relaxed this time, and that is good, especially because we have in a series where you are used to race week in and week out with the same people for years, because the Euro V8 has always had this small but very, very faithful group of drivers that know each other very well, and now all of a sudden you have double the number of drivers. It is sometimes possible that the balance is broken, but it seemed like almost everything went well. I think that the organizers put a big black mark with their marker on this track, and they said never again running in this place. And I think it's for the best. Too bad, because then when we had racing, it was very, very good, because when the pack was more spread out, even then, when you have like 2-3 car battles, every time they went through that particular section, it was always exciting to see these drivers go sideways, the car bouncing, and if there is a car that doesn't like, that likes to go wild on you, is the V8 Supercar, so it was a match made in hell more than in heaven, that bump with these cars and a big field. So yeah, that was quite interesting. Race 2 we had another pileup, but drivers learn from the mistake. They did the pileup earlier. Actually, the crash was on the front stretch at the beginning of the race. I don't quite remember how that came to happen, but there must have been some. The front stretch at Monza goes from very, very wide to very small in a matter of a few meters. But whatever the case, race 1 was pretty entertaining, and it was a guy that seems to be, back with a vengeance after disappearing midway through last season. Some say kidnapped by the, highly ranked Audi officials to have him basically become a test hamster for the TCR car. Nicole Foggy is back, and he won that race with great class and staying away from trouble. Only 7/100 of a second in front, 7/10 of a second in front of a surprise name. Well, not a surprise name in general, but a surprise name in the series. Jake Blackhall with John Miller rounding up the podium was a very good performance from Blackhall, and Foggy, of course, was very good in media day and started the championship the right way.
Yeah, it was a really good from him at the media day. At that point, it was 3 from 3 for the season, if you include the media day. Jake Blackhall, yep, very strong from him in second place. Of course, a driver that we've become very familiar with the BSR leagues in the past. And John Miller on his debut, finishing in third place. Warmingham was up in second place in the early stages, fell back to fourth. And Steve Labelli finished in fifth, top of the AM drivers as well. In race 2, it was, well, early on, it was Greg Carr leading. Well, Carr really strong in this new V8 supercar. He's really adjusted to the car very well, and was leading the way in the early stages by a few seconds. Lewis Bibby, who started relatively far up due to, George McClay, who started relatively far up due to the fact that he was out of position from that race 1 shunt. Started in 11th place, so he was chasing him down. And then you had all the other top drivers making their way up through the order up to, I believe, a 24-car reverse grid. However, Carr made his pit stop. It was a lap later than McClay, so had already lost a little bit of time. And then coming out of the pits, going through turn 1, spun on his cold tyres, and tapped the wall, caused a bit of steering damage, and gave up the lead. And he that was pretty much his chances of the race win gone, and his chances of a decent finish. And it left Lewis Bibby to George McClay. Why am I saying that? To run away with the race victory. Nicole Foggy got pretty close in the later stages after a terrific battle with Chris Jackson and Victor Tanaka. However, managed to just pull away, and McClay won by 0.8 of a second over Nicole Foggy. It was a Scotland 1-2 with Chris Jackson rounding out the podium just behind. A big shame, Marco, for Greg Carr, because in the media day he was mega strong and he was giving himself a chance at the race win. You know, it's Monza, so if you can stay in the draft, then you're going to give yourself an opportunity. And in the end, just those cold tyres, this new tyre model still needs to get used to for a lot of these drivers.
Yes, absolutely. By the way, almost fitting that George McClay won race 2, given that he was the involuntary, catalyst, let's say, of the massive wreck. He spun, hit Brandon. Well, he spun, he got a little bit squirrely, hit Brandon. All hell broke loose. Brandon, terrible first round. Going to be a drop round, I think 100% for him, because he retired in both race 1 and race 2. Very, very unlucky. He was involved in a mess in race 1. Of course, the first victim and plowing hard into the wall. And then, of course, in race 2, got involved in that crash at the beginning of the race because he was starting at the back, having missed the reverse grid. But yeah, I mean, the Greg Carr, guy driver to look forward to, because he's shown some fantastic pace. I remember he is still considered a gentleman driver, so he will certainly be the favorite for this for his class championship, and also with the chance to bring home some podiums and maybe even a victory here and there overall this season. So season is just started. So Suzuka coming next, if I'm not mistaken, in a couple of weeks' time. So certainly a more normal track, I'd say, where we could maybe have an even better picture of the balance of power in the championship. But I think the quick guys are still quick. Brandon will bounce back no matter what. He's a great driver. But there are many, many new faces. I want to see the Chimera boys. Chimera. In Italian is Chimera, so in English it's...
That's excusable, I think.
No, because in the broadcast I said it right 100 times in English, and now I forget. Chimera, I think you say. Wilson and Chin. I want to see more from them because they didn't have particular good luck in the first round. So cannot wait for the second round. Again, many drivers new to the series. If there is a series where you will have the best possible quote unquote coaching for a car that's tough to drive, is this. The community of the Euro V8s is super open and they will always help you no matter what. So I'm you know I'm quite sure with the more normal track coming up, Suzuka especially, uh, driving standards will improve greatly and we'll have a lot of fun in Suzuka.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, the last time we visited Suzuka in the series was actually season 4, and we had a terrific duel between Brandon and Foggy, where Foggy tried to overtake on the line, couldn't quite make it, or was it? It was Foggy trying to catch up to Brandon, and that was a classic. And hopefully, yeah, next time will be a classic as well. In terms of Brandon, of course, dropping this, I remember Evdoka as well in season 4. He had an atrocious Mid-Ohio round and got loads of points. I think he scored 0 points in race 1. Maybe scored a handful of points in race 1 and then retired in race 2. And after that, he barely had a retirement all season long. So he can go the rest of the season without a significant issue. That's what he's got to hope for, at least, going into the Suzuka. Going to need some very consistent finishes. Michael, we usually go through our favourites for the championship. Just looking at the championship at the moment, we've got Nicole Foggy leading the way ahead of Jake Blackhall, George McClay in 3rd place, Steve Lavelli a long way clear of the amateur or the club standings. And then it's Jackson and Chmielewski rounding out the top 6 overall. Who are you going to go for your pro winner? And would you like to predict who's going to win the Gentleman's Cup as well?
Well, gentleman is going to be Greg Carr, even though it's very early, but I think he has something of a feeling with this new car. And saying Foggy right now is too easy, so I will go for Brandon for the overall championship.
Oh, I was going to say Foggy's too easy. I'm going to go for Brandon. I will go for Chris Jackson to win the overall championship. I'm not going to be, I'm a big fan of Tony Kloosterman, and I usually blindly support him. But maybe if I don't back him for this one, maybe he'll win the championship. I don't know. But Chris Jackson, his teammate, was very strong at Monza. I thought he drove very well. So maybe he will win the title. In terms of amateur, I can't go the same as you, so I'll go Steve Lavelli. So 4th in the championship at the moment. He seems really quick in this car, and he will win the amateur standing. So we'll put our predictions down, and yeah, maybe you can make your own predictions as well, listening along to this. But of course, in just over a week's time, then we will be back with the UV8 Supercar Series, and that will be from Suzuka. That'll be Saturday evening. So, final series we'll talk about. We were going to talk about IndyCar, Marco. However, I realised that we talked about that last week. So we will talk about the iRacing Formula 3.5 Championship instead. First up, probably the most incredible thing was the graphics package. And I compliment you significantly for the graphics because, yeah, inspired by the F1 Premium graphics package from the early 2000s. And I thought it's very good looking, in my opinion. Maybe the writing is a little bit unclear, perhaps. However, I think could work well. I mean, it'd be great if we could get that on each of our series as well, if we could have a distinct style. So I congratulate you on that one. In terms of the race, how was it out there? Yeah, how did the race progress?
So first of all, yeah, I mean, there are some things that I would like to change. Being that it was, yeah, the text. Of course, the problem is that the YouTube compression does a big number on the quality. So what looked perfect on my screen didn't look as good text-wise because the color combination. Somebody in the chat says, you know, this will never work on TV. I was too busy doing the cameras to say that. Yeah, no, this was taken from TV. But whatever. The race was calm at the front. Basically, the way they started is the way they ended. It was finally a calm race for the Lyle, Crouch, and Olson. All three drivers have been involved in something in the last couple of races. But then there was Ed Samborski, finished in fourth in the middle of no man's land. But after that, from position 5 backwards, my goodness, it was a fantastic race. Plenty of overtakes, plenty of. This car is so difficult to drive, but also so rewarding that even in a track like Barcelona, and by the way, we were at the historic layout, but no driver even attempted to cut because, of course, I think they care about the front wings, and this car is very sensible to damage, so that was not a problem. But I mean, even in Barcelona, we had some fantastic driving by the drivers. It was another beautiful race. We have had during the season one or two races where the fight for the win was very exciting, but I think that the big strength of this championship has been the absolute quality of the midfield. Sounds like real life F1, if you ask me. It was certainly exciting to see these drivers battle like trains of 5, 6, 7 cars, slipstreaming, and then DRS is useful but is not overpowered. Therefore, you can overtake and you can defend even when you don't use it if you use good racecraft. Again, it's a shame that the new tire model has made this car very tough to drive, which in a sense, of course, it's better because new tire model is much better than the old one. But if people can get past this hurdle, we will. This car deserves a lot of participation. I was drafted very late into broadcasting this championship. Of course, I was a bit afraid of the clash with the Euro V8s, but then, of course, at least for now, this is not a problem because Euro V8s are following. We are in the winter time here in the northern hemisphere, so it's okay. But I have to say, I've had a lot of fun covering the championship, and the community is great because it's not easy to find people that would actually help in to have a streamed official series, and you may help financially and then not even be in the top split, which of course would be a bummer. But yeah, very engaging. The numbers are great, so I love this championship. I wish there were more drivers, but even those that are there now put on a show week in and week out. So I cannot wait for the next one, which of course, as of this moment, I can tell you that I don't remember where it's going to be, but I will tell you in a second. I remember it was an interesting track, to say the least. Ready to be...
Yeah, it's going to be Spa.
Yeah, Spa, of course. So this is going to be massive participation, of course, being Spa, being Saturday evening. So expect some fireworks. I'm already excited by the prospect of these drivers slipstreaming from La Source up until Le Combe, with or without DRS. Hopefully no one opens DRS in Eau Rouge, because that would be bad. Because this car has, just like F1, no grip when you are going through a corner with DRS open. So,
I mean, watch out for qualifying with that.
yeah.
See if anyone attempts it. That would be bold. Yeah, I remember how they had to ban that in 2011 when you used to have the DRS available at all times during qualifying. And I think it was Eau Rouge and maybe the Monaco Tunnel where they just said, no, you're not allowed
No.
to have the DRS through there. But if anyone wants to try it and end up in a big crash, yeah, be our guest, undoubtedly.
And
In the
please let us
championship,
know so we can show you on the cameras, you know?
yeah, definitely. Although you can't even see when the DRS is open.
Of
Honestly,
course you
when the
can.
hey, what? No, you can't.
Yes, of course you can.
Well, that's not a thing. What when the DRS? I've gone through this in the past, Marco. When the DRS has a slit,
Hmm.
or when the rear wing has a slit, it means that it's closed, and then when it's fully shut, it means that it's open.
Yes.
I mean, that's not very good viewing, unfortunately. It's not as I mean, from external cameras, you cannot see it whatsoever.
No, but you start developing, like for example, Austin Knight, our colleague, has a very keen eye on this. But um, thanks to your great camera pack, I don't know if that was all a thing to make me say that you have made a great camera pack, which shows. Of course, we have a camera on the rear wing, which is beautiful, but also when you are on board with the driver looking forward, you can clearly see it, and you can also see it when you are watching the car from the outside in a front shot. You can see it if you train yourself. Like I was skeptical at first, but now I've noticed that I can catch up on that pretty quickly, even
How
on
can you see it when you're riding on board?
because I look at the rear wing of the car in front.
Oh, okay. Yep. Cool. Yep.
And if I catch especially if you catch the moment it closes or opens, you notice it pretty much straight away. I mean, again, you need to develop some sort of recognition. It's not like and you notice it, but you notice it. You were talking about the standings then, and still we have a little bit of a chaotic situation at the front because the top 3 drivers all have 3 different number of weeks counted. Of course, top 8 weeks count. After that, you have, oh man, drop weeks. Yes, drop weeks, drop scores. So yeah, looks like Sam. Looks like Team Delisle is in the lead, but I wouldn't rule out neither Samborski, who has all the full 8 weeks, or Ilbrink, of course, a former World Championship driver who has only 6 weeks counted, so he is very close. And of course, another driver we have to keep an eye on is another driver on 7 weeks counted out of the 8 available, which is Greg Olson.
Yeah, could still turn around quite significantly. That like of course, in terms of those weeks counted, yeah, different amounts, and of course some of those weeks counted for the drivers. That could be a 0 score potentially. Pretty much they could have entered a race and barely done anything, and so it will change. It's not brilliant for us commentators because we really don't know what the proper standings are like. However, we'll try to work it out. Maybe make a nice spreadsheet with all their scores and whatnot. But yeah, Dalal looking very strongly to defend his title. He seems to have a small edge. He seemed to have an edge last season as well, but a few things went against his way, particularly Montreal, I think, back to. And Ilbrink, unfortunately, not being able to do a few of the rounds. A little bit underwhelming at Barcelona, I think, getting a 5th place finish. But yeah, you can never rule out a quality driver like Paul Ilbrink, as you say, a former World Championship driver. So yeah, that's the Formula 3.5 Championship official series, and that will be back next Saturday. And of course, we'll feature Marco's brilliant graphics package once again, perhaps improved. Will it be improved, Marco? Have you been able to make any
Well,
adjustments?
my idea was to have it on a hiatus for this week and
Ah,
work hard on improving it for next week. But we'll see.
cool. Okay, look forward to that one, undoubtedly. So yeah, that's on the iRacing Esports Network next Saturday at 22 GMT. So we look forward to next week, Marco. I mean, what stuff are we looking forward to seeing within the next? 10 days or so.
Well, since we are on the subject of the 3.5 series, they will be racing at Zandvoort, a mini preview of the F1 coming there this season, of course. Grand Prix layout. Again, another track where usually, I remember with the MP4-30, terrible races, super boring races. I'm expecting a lot of fun with this car. Also, the IndyCar series, which this week will be in Motegi for the oval race, because 1 week here, 1 week there, will be back on a road course, and that particular event, seasons are winding down, by the way. Next week will be week 9. It will be at a unique track, which I absolutely love, and finally I'm able to commentate a race from there, the modified Sebring layout, which is the layout used by IndyCar in real life for their pre-season testing. And they go there because, of course, Sebring is the perfect place to test, especially the mechanical readiness of the cars. So this is going to be absolutely great. And of course, back with Suzuka, we talked about that in the Euro V8s. That's going to be fun as well. And I think that, well, of course, we will have. Will we have AOSC next week? I think so, right? And of
Yes,
course,
at Summit Point.
ooh,
Had
wow.
to do a camera pack for that
Yeah,
place. That's
there
going to
are
be
no.
awesome.
Please do it because there are no camera packs for that track that I know of. Well, there is one, but it's very basic, and I think last updated in 2016. So, and then of course Rick Motek. Of course, congratulations to our own Kevin Ellis Jr. for bringing home a victory. Rick Motek earlier this week, and I think that that should be that. Of course, Aussie Mixed and Fixed and IMSA races will be back as well from the other side of the world. And then I think it's pretty much this will be our lineup uh, until the return of SimRacersWorld and the return of War GT, which is coming very soon. They had their media day already, if I'm not mistaken, and of course
Yes.
the return of ARL TCR series.
Yeah, absolutely. Also Bathurst 2 hours, which I think we mentioned earlier on. I'm really excited about that. And of course, you'll be broadcasting comments. You'll be broadcasting that one, Marco, with occasional insights for that one.
Yes, of course,
So,
because being a former participant of the event, I know everything about
oh
it.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Don't look at your third-party apps whilst you're driving along, especially when it's dark. I've also learnt my mistakes from last season. It will be during the day this year, not during the night.
If you want, I can do a pre-race briefing to the drivers, telling them, don't look at JRT or when you are driving the Porsche, especially. But yeah, big
That
numbers
would
in
be
GT3.
appreciated. Yeah.
I've seen big numbers of signups in GT3, especially. It's going to be a great one.
Absolutely. So yeah, make sure that you check out all those broadcasts over the next week or so, and also check out our social media platforms on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and of course do check out our YouTube channel as well, and also check out the iRacing Esports Network because we'll be certainly broadcasting World GT on that, along with the Formula 3.5 Championship and of course the SimRacersWorld Championship when that comes back. But from me and from Marco, we'll say goodbye and we'll see you next week for another podcast.